Hey, welcome back. Let's paint some leaves. I'm going to start with some purple, and my plan is to be a little bit more saturated with this pigment than I was with the paint that I used to do the border, although I was pretty saturated with the border, so I was just gonna try this and see how it goes. The plan is to take the paintbrush and do these little blotty kind of stamps. You're just gonna blot the paintbrush down onto the paper in such a way that it leaves, like basically a little leaf-shaped stamp. And it's kind of convenient that round brushes are sort of leaf-shaped. You might notice that the round brush that I'm using is one of my bigger round brushes. It might be a size 10 or 12, it could even be a 14. How big you want your leaves to be is directly coordinated to how big your brush is. Use a bigger brush for bigger leaves. You might also notice that the motion that I'm doing with the brush is like a press and then pull. So I'm pressing down on the paper with the brush, and then I'm either pulling it towards myself or I'm pulling it off towards the side of the page. You might remember a while back I said that I've heard artists say that painting is just pushing and pulling paint around. So right now I'm kind of pulling it. That doesn't mean you can't do a pushier leaf. But I'm doing a pullier leaf, so that's all up to experimenting and seeing what works for you. So you saw me start with purple. I'm gonna add some blue in there. I'm not just pressing down and doing singular leaves, I'm also kind of pressing them so close together that I get little bunches of leaves. It's almost like a little bush. My plan was to go ahead and paint over this too, so this is more texture that's going into the background. So if you're following along with me, please do not stress over this. Like, you're just aiming for more texture. You're giving kind of like an impression of leaves. It is but a dream of a leaf. Leaf dreams. So I'm just going to be doing the same thing over and over again for this entire video. I'm just switching between colors. I'm doing some overlap and some layering and just adding little leaves and leaf textures all throughout this around border. Not in the middle, but just all the way around. And I'm just going to chill here and keep on painting leaves until it seems like it's done. And it's a very calming, soothing, sort of meditative process when you get into a flow like this and you're just kind of doing a repetitive, repeating pattern kind of thing. Although it's not exactly a repeating pattern because it's kind of random and you're not just, you could do it very uniform if you wanted to. That would be a choice. That'd be a style choice. It's also a style choice to make it kind of chaotic and random and more organic and natural seeming. Out of my way, baskets. Another thing you may notice is sometimes you might press down with the brush and the paint, since we're using watercolor, might puddle up a good bit and it might not be the shape that you were aiming for or the shape that you thought it was. But sometimes if you just give it a minute and don't fuss with it anymore and just see what happens, it kind of goes into a cool shape all on its own. So it's all very trust the process. Like, trust the process so hard. I saw somebody say, does the process know we're trusting it? No, but that's okay. We trust it anyway. I remember painting this part and being like, why does it look like teeth? I'm not trying to look all jagged and dangerous over here. But this is what happens when you're painting. Sometimes it looks different on the page than you thought it would look in your head. Oh, I'm adding some little leaves floating around on the inside too. Remember earlier I was like, don't paint the inside part, just paint the border part. And like, I stand by that. However, I do like to throw an errant leaf here and there to give the painting some movement. Just seems a little more alive that way, so a stray leaf in the middle is okay by me. At this stage, I'm really enjoying the way it looks down there in the right-hand corner. That little section where it looks very leafy. I'm wanting it to look kind of wild and foresty. So it's up a little closer and you can see kind of how much water is squeegeeing out of this brush when I press it down, and how long it's been since I've re-upped the water and the paint. This is why I like the sable brushes, because you can keep working with it for a long time. There we go. More water, more paint. And you can see that sometimes I'm doing the stamp method, but sometimes I'm really just using the very tip of the brush to apply more paint in a more sketchy kind of way. Just have a lot of freedom with the way that you do things, you know? If you started with the stamp and that's working, do that. But then if you want to use your brush in a different way, do it, you know? Like, there's no rules in art. There's only cause and effect. If you look down towards the left-hand side of the screen there where the well of purple paint is, you'll notice that I've put a bunch of water directly into that paint well, because I'm using the purple so much and I want to be able to go back to it with my brush and just gather more paint without a bunch of drama with going back and forth between the water and the paint and whatever. So I've kind of figured out how much water I needed to drop into that paint well, and of course watercolor it dries solid, so it's not, it's not wet paint completely in there, but there's like a little pocket of wet paint there that I'm going back to, and that's making it a lot easier to just go grab some very highly pigmented paint that I have swished the water around in a bunch and left it like a little lake to come back to. that left upper corner is looking really messy to me, and it was very difficult for me to not go over and continue to obsess over it more and more. It's really tricky for me not to get way bogged down in the details. And details are great. There's nothing wrong with details, but sometimes you have to zoom out and look at the whole picture. You know the expression where people say, don't lose the forest for the trees. This is almost a literal way to lose the forest for the trees. I guess technically it's still figurative because I'm not talking about an actual forest, but I am losing the painting for the leaves, or I'm running the risk of it anyway. Okay, because when I zoom out and I just look at the whole thing all together, it's looking pretty cool. And I'm really excited to see what it looks like when I start painting other stuff over top of it with gouache. It could go totally sideways. I honestly don't know. I just have a vision in my mind, and then I have to paint it out and see if it works. It's like the only way to know. Okay, so here I realized that I didn't want all of the leaf shapes to be quite so defined. I wanted to see some of them blurring together so that it looks more texturized and more like there's whole bushes maybe and clumps of leaves. So I'm just taking some water and I'm going over it and I'm kind of just blurring it up a little bit on purpose. Catch me cleaning all this paint off the tape because if I don't, I'm going to get my elbow in it and I'm going to drag it across the page, and that's, there's nothing that can't be fixed, but it would be very annoying. So I'm trying to clean up after myself just a little bit. Okay, you made it through another video with me. Way to go. See you next time.